Hello, everyone. Colleagues. Hello, Christine.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Regis. Good afternoon, Excellency. Good afternoon to everybody.
Good afternoon. Hello, Yvonne. Hello, Regis.
Hello, Lionel.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so we've got 1 more minute before we start, just to give people an opportunity to jump onto the call. Yes, good afternoon. It's 1500 hours, so I think we can start. So let me start by just conveying apologies from our Assistant Secretary General, who was unable to join the session, but he sends his greetings because he had to join another meeting. So good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished participants joining us from the OACPS region. Bonjour à tous. Welcome to the third session of the OACPS webinar-based knowledge sharing cycle. And today's topic is driving agricultural development in OACPS countries, learnings from ACP EU Private Sector Development Program. My names are Yvonne Chlesche. I'm currently working on value chains and trade at the OACPS Secretariat based in Brussels, Belgium. And I'm happy to say that I'll be your moderator for this session today. Let me now turn to the objectives of our session. Basically, this session, we intend to highlight successful initiatives and interventions in the agriculture development implemented under the Intra-ACP PSD programs. We will also discuss lessons learned and challenges faced in promoting agriculture development in OACPS countries. We will also look at identifying opportunities for synergy, collaboration, and replication of successful intervention. And through this session, we are hoping to also raise awareness among the private and public sector stakeholders about the significance of agriculture in private sector development and the potential avenues for our advancement. I'm sure, as you have all noted from the program, the session is basically structured. It will have 2 panels. Each panel will be focusing on specific aspects of the agriculture development in ACP countries. The first panel is going to look at the experiences of intra-ACP private sector development programs in advancing agricultural development in OACPS countries. This panel features representatives from implementing agencies, local partners, and beneficiaries of the intra-ACP programs, who will share insights into successful initiatives and interventions to face challenges in agriculture development. So some of the key elements that they will be discussing include value chain development and market integration, access to finance and credit facilities for agricultural enterprises, climate smart agricultural practices, technology, and innovation. The second panel is going to look at perspectives from agriculture experts and stakeholders, and basically it's going to focus on the following points. They will discuss policy frameworks and regulatory environment for agriculture development. They will also touch on the sustainable agriculture and environmental conservation, and also highlight some areas related to digitalization for enhancing agricultural productivity. Now, before we go into our session, I just thought that it's important that we also discuss some housekeeping rules. The first element is just to encourage everybody to turn off their mics unless you're given the floor to speak. And then, of course, for the speakers, we are encouraging you to turn on your cameras for the entire duration of your panel. This also helps, especially with the interpreters. Then last, just to inform everybody that our meeting will have simultaneous interpretation into English and French. So you are invited to speak in the language that you're comfortable. Now that we've got that out of the way, let me now, I think we can move to the opening session. And here we will be receiving two remarks from the EU and from the OACPS. And with that, I would like to, it's my honor to invite Mr. Regis Meritan, who is the head of sector, DG INTPA, Agricultural Growth from the European Commission, to give his remarks. Regis, you have the floor.
Many thanks, Yvonne, and good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon, Excellency. Thanks. So I'm really happy and honored to be with you this afternoon. So shortly, it's now this specific initiative on supporting private sector in general. It started basically when I took this position almost 10 years ago now in Brussels. And I remember that we had this, I would not say constraints, but we were in a framework where all what was supposed to be in agriculture was in private sector. And we were afraid to have less funds for agricultural development that we had before. And when you, ACP office, you consulted your partners, your members, we had in fact a huge demand for the agricultural sector. And this just illustrates the fact that the agricultural sector remains pivotal for sustainable development in ACP countries, not only in ACP countries, but for sure in ACP countries. Not only because it represents a large share of the GDPs, but as well, it has, of course, a major contribution to ensuring better livelihoods in these countries. Then, private sector. Why this focus on private sector? We have been in our, let's say, cooperation relation, focusing for decades on governments, not only on policies, but as well on government-led operations. And there was, and I'm talking about what was happening, let's say 15, 20 years ago or more, there was always this question about, but what can we do directly to support the real people on the ground? Of course, private sector, be in a value chain, companies transforming the products, but as well directly, those who are necessarily private people, the farmers themselves. Creating instruments able to directly target private sector is not easy. This is something we have been trying to build together, the ACP side and us as EU. And you will have some presentations of some of the best or the most relevant experiences we have on this. In terms of key achievements today, we have, I think, very significant examples to show, be on what is done directly for building the capacities of stakeholders, beyond what we have been doing for supporting across ACP countries farmers organizations. We had recently a very positive evaluation of what has been done for supporting farmers organization. And I must say that for having been working for several decades on the support to farmers organization, The situation today is completely different compared to the situation we had 20, 30 years ago. We have today, and we have the evidence of that, farmers organizations across ACP countries who have been really able to influence public policies, to support concretely with financial services, with technical services and members. So of course, a lot remains to be done, but it's something, and it's now really evidence-based, which is really functioning, and that we have all together to continue to support. Something else, of course, which is not new. I see Jeremy from Colead, formerly OACP. It's probably one of the oldest ongoing cooperation operation we have with the ACP, which is simply what we have been together put in place to ensure that exporters of different kind of agricultural products across ACP would always be able, even with permanently new EU regulations, able to export to EU. It's as well a very successful experience, and you will have a short presentation of this success story. Third point is, of course, trying to facilitate the access to finance, to the main key element of the value chain, be cooperative, farmers, SMEs. For this, we have been building quite genuine tools with European GFIs. You will have a presentation as well of it. It's not easy. Agriculture is probably the most difficult sector for private investors, but without access to finance, of course, the type of support we can give to private sector will remain limited. We at this stage as well have relevant, significant experiences to show. Even if on this, I think it's important to insist on that. Even if on this, private funds for investment in agriculture is a need, but it's not enough. And we continue to support public policies, and in particular public development banks as well on what remains of the specific ACP funds we had on the last European Development Fund. A final word on the fact that on this we are in a context where there is a huge interest and concern for promoting climate smart practices, all what is around agroecology, agroforestry, and that it's a kind of, that's something we are mainstreaming in all our operations. And I think that our colleagues presenting investment of the different financial tools we have been putting in place will insist on that as well. In a nutshell, even if our partnership has evolved in the last years, be sure that we continue to support ACP countries on these items. We are examining these weeks new support for farmers organization across ACP countries, new support for continuing the operation Colead. So we are still, we remain in close touch, and we will continue to be the big main supporters of this field in ACP countries. Thank you so much, and I will wish you interesting seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Regis, for walking us down memory lane and reminding us where we started from with regard to the private sector development framework, and also reassuring us on the commitment of the Commission, the EU, with regard to supporting OACPS countries. So thank you very much for those wise and very welcoming statement. Can I now turn to His Excellency, Mr. George Singana Manuri, who is the Ambassador of Vanuatu, but also the chairperson of the OACPS Subcommittee on Trade and Commodities. This is the subcommittee that normally supervises the implementation of most of the programs that we are going to discuss today. So Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you indeed, Yvonne, and also thank you, Mr. Regis Meritan, for the remarks. On the side, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues and participants, I'm very also delighted to welcome you today at this pivotal session of the OACPS webinar-based knowledge sharing cycle. Today, we gather to discuss agriculture and more specifically to unpack the transformative power it holds for members of the OACPS, excuse me, amidst a landscape of challenges and opportunities. Agriculture remains the backbone of our economies, contributing significantly to GDP and employment across our diverse regions in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. It sustains livelihoods and quality of life, particularly in the rural areas, and forms the bedrock of our food security. Yet our agriculture sector faces formidable challenges. Climate change threatens our production system with erratic weather patterns and rising temperature. Only last week, a Category 4 cyclone devastated many of our member states and small island countries in the Caribbean. Cyclone Beryl reminds us that many of those depending on agriculture would be facing huge complications and challenges in rebuilding their lives and businesses. Countries will simply no longer be able to repay their debts to international finance institutions and may have no other choice but to resort to more borrowing to repay existing debt and reconstruct public infrastructures built from current loans. Limited access to market, technology, and finance constrains our ability to compete globally and achieve sustainable growth. Institutional capacity sometimes struggle to keep pace with the dynamic needs of our farmers and agribusinesses. In response to these challenges, the OACPS has embarked on a journey of resilience and innovation. The revised OACPS Private Sector Development Strategy, adopted in 2023, underscores our commitment to fostering inclusive and sustainable agricultural growth. The strategy prioritizes investment in rural infrastructure, support for smallholder farmers, and the promotion of climate-smart agriculture practices. It aligns closely with the Sustainable Development Goals, reflecting our shared ambition to eradicate hunger and poverty while promoting economic prosperity. Central to our effort are the Intra-ACP private sector development programs in collaboration with the European Union. These programs have been pivotal in leveraging resources and expertise to address critical gaps in our agricultural value chains. Through strategic investment, such as Feed for Market or initiatives like AgriFi or ABC Fund, we have empowered farmers to access finance, knowledge, and market opportunities. This holistic approach has not only increased agricultural productivity and income, but has also enhanced resilience of our agricultural system against climate shocks. One compelling example is the AgriFi program, which has mobilized 45 million euro to support climate-smart agriculture across ACP regions. By integrating innovative practices and technologies, AgriFi has enabled farmers to adapt to changing climate conditions while preserving natural resources. This initiative exemplifies our commitment to sustainable development, where economic growth goes hand in hand with environmental stewardship. As we navigate the complexities of agricultural development, it is imperative that we strengthen our policy frameworks and institutional capacities. We must foster an enabling environment that supports entrepreneurship, innovation, and investment in agricultural value chains. Our effort must be inclusive, ensuring that women and youth have equitable access to resources and opportunities within the sector. Today's session is an opportunity to build upon our collective achievement and share lessons learned. It is a platform for dialogue where stakeholders from across sectors can exchange ideas, identify synergies, and chart a course for future collaboration. Together, we can harness the transformative power of agriculture to build resilient economies, ensure food security, and improve the quality of life of our citizens. In closing, I encourage each of you to actively engage in today's discussion. Let us seize this moment to shape a future where agriculture not only sustains our economies, but also enhances the well-being of our communities. Together, we can achieve our shared vision of a prosperous and sustainable future for OACPS regions. I thank you for your attention and wish you all fruitful discussions. Again, thank you, moderator, and all participants.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you for sharing information on the initiatives that the OACPS is actually undertaking, and also giving us information about the private sector development strategy. So with that, we've come to the end of the opening session. We now move into the first panel that is going to discuss experiences of intra-ACP private sector development programs in advancing agricultural development in ACP countries. Under this panel, we are going to receive presentations from 3 programs. We have the Fit for Market program, the Agriculture Financing Initiative, and the Agribusiness Capital Fund, famously known as the ABC Fund. So now let me introduce our speakers for the panel. So first up, we have Mr. Jeremy Knops, who is the General Delegate from COLID, the implementing agency for the Fit for Market program. And I'm sure as some of you heard when Regis was speaking, this is the oldest child between OACPS and the EU. So very happy to have him here. You're welcome, Jeremy. Complementing his presentation will be Mr. Patrick Degby, who is the CEO, Wenja Agricultural Development. He is based in Ghana, and so will be sharing his field experience as a beneficiary to the Fit for Market program. Next, that I'd like to introduce is Mr. Lionel Dio, who is the fund manager for the Agriculture Financing Initiative, better known as AgriFi. Last but not least is Mr. Didier Tago, who is the Credit Portfolio Manager in Njaro. He is joining us from Cote d'Ivoire, and Njaro basically helps us coordinate and implement the Agribusiness Capital Fund, the ABC Fund. You're welcome. So let's now start with the Fit for Market program. The Fit for Market program, as indicated, is implemented by COLID. This is the former COLID ACP. It plays a key role in empowering micro, small, and medium enterprises in OACPS countries by enhancing their competitiveness and market access. We have noted that over the years, the program has actually helped SMEs to improve product quality and meet international standards. The program also had a component on SPS, which has come to an end, but I'm sure the colleagues will allude to this, which basically focused on compliance with sanitary and phytosanitary measures, ensuring safer and pest-free exports. Today, the Fit for Market Plus actually offers advanced support, including market intelligence and innovative practices to drive further success. Jeremy, in view of the FFM transition, where we have seen that the FFM has actually moved from FFM, SPS, and now we're speaking about FFM Plus, could you please share some learnings and impact of the program, elaborating on the key strategies which have been employed to enhance value chain development and market linkages for OACPS farmers? In addition, would appreciate if you could indicate how the program specifically helped smallholder farmers to gain better market access. You have 15 minutes for intervention. And I note that you'll be complimented by Patrick from the region. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Yvonne, and good afternoon, Excellency, and Regis, and everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my presentation. If you can confirm that you see it on your screen. Is this okay?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. So yes, I'll try with Patrick to share some of the key learnings and insights from these programs. And as it was already mentioned during the introductory remarks, these programs really have been built in reality on the previous interventions, already Intra-ACP programs, amongst which the PIP and NLS programs at the time. So the Fit for Market and Fit for Market SPS programs, the first one started in 2016, and the specific objective of these programs is to support producer groups and MSMEs from the horticultural sector across OACPS member states to better comply with market and regulatory requirements, amongst which from the EU, but not only, but to do that within a sustainable framework. And this addition here is quite important, and I'll come back to it later. We recently went through a final technical evaluation from both programs, and some positive to very positive results were recognized on the relevance, the coherence, the efficiency, the effectiveness, the sustainability, but of course also, and most importantly, on the impact of both programs. But if we go a bit further and try to look at some of these key learnings and a couple of these recommendations, I would like to insist on a couple of points here today. First of all, within these intra-ACP programs, so that work with the private sector primarily, but also with the ecosystem of these companies and producer groups to make sure that they have the support wherever they're based from. There are a couple of key principles for action that have contributed really to the success of these programs, on previous programs, but also on current programs that we're currently building. First of all, it's the demand-driven aspect. Now, demand-driven means that most of the support that's being provided in terms of information, knowledge, skills through technical assistance, vocational training is really driven in the first place by a demand that is being formulated by the partner in the country where it is based. Once this demand is received, we build an action plan together where there's a cost-sharing element where the partner takes into account and upon his responsibility to implement a number of activities. Other principle, the non-substitution, given the wide variety of contexts, the reality of our interventions mean that we believe that our best added value has always been to position ourselves as an enhancer and a facilitator to enable stakeholders to make the best informed decisions, not to make the decisions instead of the stakeholder through the interventions of these programs. And last but not least, the capacity to be flexible, to adapt to local micro, meso, and macro contexts, especially in a highly disrupted context, such as the one we've been through during the past couple of years, and specifically during the implementation of both programs. So I talked, the specific objective is about supporting regulatory market compliance, and within this area, there's a very strong SPS component, and it was also reminded by yourself, Yvonne. So that's a big part of the work. But the challenge within the FFM programs is really to work in parallel to also this proactive to support this transition to more sustainable practices on the economic, social, and environmental front. And this kind of twin dual approach was positively recognized once switched back through the implementation of a sustainability self-assessment system based on continuous improvement that's being delivered and rolled out amongst all companies we work with. Our programs provide targeted direct technical assistance, being behind it vocational training, technical assistance, capacity building activities in approximately 50 ACP countries, because that's where demands have been received. But in parallel to that, we've invested and consolidated massively with these programs in the building of a toolbox that makes available some open resources, technical resources that are available for all stakeholders on a permanent basis. I'm very happy to say that within the framework of these programs, for instance, on the e-learning, we've registered learners from every single OACPS member state over the life cycle of the program. So all ACP countries have been touched in effect by these programs. Been recommended within this overall sustainability context, whereas previous programs were very heavily focused on the technical component of compliance of agronomy, that we need to increasingly look at the overall kind of operators' economic and business performance. This is something that was initiated at the start of Fit for Market and that we continue at the moment through Fit for Market Plus, but it's really adopting this holistic approach. We were recommended to also increase the efforts of these programs in linking the technical assistance that was being provided, being on the social, agronomic, environmental, SPS, business side, to facilitated access to finance. And last but not least, to define strategies to further leverage the strong network of experts and trainers throughout ACP member states with whom we've been working, whom competencies have been built over time in order to be made more widely available and mobilized by all stakeholders. I'm not going to go through every single figure here, but these are some key specific outputs and impacts from specifically the Fit for Market SPS program, which is the one that finished in 2023. I would just like to really highlight that throughout this program, basically, we've seen increased sales of fresh and processed produce from MSMEs and producer groups which were supported by the program, increased sales on all markets, being on export markets, regional markets, export markets to the EU, other export markets, international, domestic and regional markets. And this increase was close to 20% over the life cycle of the program, despite a highly disrupted environment, as we all know. We saw an increase in terms of employees directly employed by companies that were supported directly through the Fit for Market SPS program. We've been able to maintain small-scale farmers who are linking up with these MSMEs supplying formal markets. And again, this has been achieved despite, and we even managed to increase the number of small-scale farmers despite an extremely complex and volatile environment. And last but not least, we've been able to slightly increase the market share of produce from OACPS member states in volume to the EU 27 UK markets over the life cycle of the program. So these are a couple of the key impacts that we wanted to highlight through the Fit for Market SPS program, but the presentations, of course, will be shared. Now, coming to the Fit for Market Plus program, which is the last one, which was started beginning of 2022 and was really designed within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic on the one hand, and on the other hand, on this kind of major overhaul and evolution in terms of policy and regulations under the umbrella of the EU Green Deal. I just wanted to highlight a couple of points. So this program today, the Fit for Market Plus program, is probably the most holistic program that has been designed so far, and it's translated into really two specific objectives. The first one is pretty close to the traditional Fit for Market SPS program, so supporting compliance within a sustainable framework. So that's the same, but there's a second one. So we recognize the importance within a highly disrupted environment to also be more directly supporting this capacity to seize new market opportunities, being on the domestic, regional, or other international markets. And by doing that within the context of course, promoting the adoption of more sustainable models when it comes to producing and managing the organizations directly in charge of the horticultural produce throughout OACPS member countries. We mentioned resilience was mentioned in this highly disruptive context. This program clearly aims at having a direct impact. And I would say if we look at the three levels, the short term, the medium term, and the long term, programs such as Fit for Market Plus an intra-ACP intervention is more looking at the medium term and the long term, rather than this capacity to really, in the light of some major disruptions, still we are doing what we can within the limits and mandates of the types of activities, but our center of gravity in terms of where we're able to provide support is more on this second and third step. We've received 950 applications for support so far in less than 2 years. This is much more than we've ever received under previous intra-ACP programs, by a very diverse range of stakeholders, but still MSMEs and producer groups represent over 60% of these demands. 80% of these economic operators have a maximum turnover of 250,000 euros on an annual basis, and half of these companies reach a maximum of 50,000 euros in terms of turnover. So this is just to give an idea about the economic size of these companies. And besides the companies, work of course with smallholder support structures, BMOs, training institutes, competence authorities. So this in essence is really in a nutshell. I'm going to be very pleased now to introduce Patrick, which has been one of these companies out of these hundreds of applications for support with whom we've been able to work throughout Fit for Market SPS and Fit for Market Plus, and we believe which is a great success story, a nice example of how things are done in practice in the field. Patrick, I'll pass you the floor. Thank you.
I have to unmute my mic. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you, Ambassador. I'm pleased to be with you on this panel. First of all, my company, World African Foods Limited, started in the year 2000. So we are 24 years old now. And the aim of the company is to participate in the fight against poverty in agricultural rural poor of Ghana. So that was the aim of starting the company in the year 2000 with very noble ideas. But how do we do that? We do that by supporting smallholder farmers in organic agriculture production and adding value through processing of their products and promoting them on the international market. So this is how we want to participate against the fight against poverty. So having said that, I mean, we work in different regions of Ghana because not all the products are of good quality depending on the soil and the climate. For example, we work with pineapple, mango, coconut, papaya, and so we work in different regions of Ghana with the smallholders farmers. The company has been certified organic since the year 2004, so 20 years now, and for fair trade since 2010. I must say we have really been highly certified in the organic agriculture because we are certified under the EU regulations. We are also certified under the National Organic Program, NOP for America. We are also certified for the Japan Agricultural System, JAS for Japan, because we export to these countries. The company main products are dry organic pineapple, mango, coconut, and papaya. In addition, we also export fresh fruits, but now we focus more on the value addition than exporting the fresh. Apart from the fresh fruits and the dry fruits, we also export other products in limited quantities. The company owns its own processing facility with equipment that meets the European standards or the international standards, if you may say, and is certified under hazard analysis and critical control points. Really a requirement that most of our clients need. I must here say that 20 years ago, drying of fruit is not well known in Ghana. So World African Foods Limited is the pioneer of dry fruit in Ghana. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, due with our organic certifications, we export to European countries, Germany, and then Switzerland, who is in Europe, USA, and Japan. So now, what has been the impact of CoreLead on our activities? Very, very important to us, the partnership we have with CoreLead. I must highlight that the support activities from Fit for Market programs helped my company to strengthen our supply base with our small-scale farmers, and also to meet the export regulations in organic, as well as implementing food safety programs, and which is certified hazard analysis and critical control points. We also benefited from managerial programs that we participated. Now, concretely, how did these programs help us? I'll be very brief in touching on some of the points in Fit for Market, and then the Fit for Market Plus that is ongoing now with us. So as Jeremy mentioned, there's a capacity building, and this capacity building, it's more demand driven. So what happened is, when we needed some areas to be improved, we formulate it, and then we go into agreement with COLID, with the memorandum of understanding, as we call it in the past, being signed. And then there is a cost sharing basis, which is taken. There's a percentage for the company and a percentage for COLID that helps us. Through these programs, we've also had technical assistance. For example, implementing the hazard analysis and critical control point is really a very key issue, because we needed it for our hygiene programs, etc. Then we have to talk about our smallholders. With our smallholders, with organic, there's always continuous improvement, or with any other listing. And then we've participated in the programs or training workshops, like training the trainer. So what normally happens is that COLID train some workers of Wild African Foods Limited with the farmers leaders, and then they in turn train their colleagues. We've also participated in collective training. So apart from the demand driven, which is specifically to us, there are a whole bunch of collective trainings that normally OACP COLID normally puts on board. So if something is of interest to us, we register and then we participate in this collective training. Some of them are data collection, plant production, protection, etc. A whole bunch of them. And there is one tool that I must highlight over here, which is called the SAS, Sustainability Self-Assessment. It's a tool which was developed by COLID. Initially, to be able to use the tool, I was a bit skeptical, but I think after going through the tools and using it to the end, it really brought out very good key indicators, like where we are, what is our strength. So with our strength, we know that's our strength, we put them aside, and then we work on our weaknesses that came out of the SAS analysis. So that's in summary the Fit for Market. So I'll just touch on two key points on Fit for Market Plus, which is ongoing now. As you all know, well, the EU has adapted the regulation for organic, and we have just 1 year, not us alone, but I mean, organic operators have up to 2025 to comply to the norm. So from next year, we will not be audited on the current regulation, but a new regulation, and Fit for Market Plus helped us to update our current program to what the new regulations are demanding for. And then we are also, as with organic agriculture, one of the difficult aspects is weed management, because no herbicides are used. So it's a really very heavy expenditure and something that takes a lot of energy. We are now trying some cover crops. It's ongoing. Indigenous cover crops that will integrate in our coconut and mango plantations. And of course, it's a cover crop to be able to limit the weeds, but at the same time, we intend getting some cover crops that will add fertility to the soil. So in a nutshell, if we had to take a consultant outside, it could have been very, very expensive for the company. But saving these monies through the partnership with COLID and the support we have with them, we could channel that finances into developing our company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Patrick. Very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Just briefly, and I'm conscious of the time, just to mention that I noted from the presentation in terms of the learnings that one of the areas that we still need to focus on is the issue of facilitating access to finance. That is something that we have even been stressing with the other programs. And I'm happy that we have Agrify, we have ABC Fund, part of the discussion. Maybe once we go to the end, we can also see how can we build synergies between what you're doing and what these financial institutions are also implementing to see how we can build those synergies. So thank you for that. And I was also happy to note that the market share of ACP products in terms of the program that you're implementing has actually increased on the EU. That is news that we like to hear, and also it also helps us to demonstrate to the member states the value of these programs that are being implemented. Patrick, the issue of value addition, this is something that is very, very key, close to the heart of OACPS members. As you may have noted, almost 70% of our members are commodity dependent. And that is why in 2017, we actually came up with a new policy, which we're calling the new approach on the support of development of agriculture value chains, because we have noted that most of our countries export raw materials, but we want to use all these programs to see how we can support our countries export value-added products, be it cashew, be it even if we move to the mineral sector. Now we're talking about critical raw materials. It's the same thing, So we always welcome these initiatives where we have these efforts that are going to assist our members actually add value to their products. So I was very, very happy to hear about the work that you're actually doing. The other element, which also relates to the work that we're doing, relates to the regulation, the organic regulation. And I'm happy that you are getting the support from COLID on this, because that is what we're trying to do. As we design these programs with our counterparts from the EU, we also want to ensure that these programs that we're designing are also helping our members comply with the regulations that are coming out of the EU. We are speaking about the organic regulation, but we know one regulation that is affecting most of our members also relates to the deforestation regulation, which is going to affect products such as cocoa, coffee, rubber. And then we also have the corporate sustainability due diligence regulation as well. So very happy with those efforts. But I'm sure everybody's itching to take the floor. So let's move to the next presentation. Of course, as I mentioned, once we finish the 3 presentations, then we'll have the question and answer session. So the next presentation now is from Agrify. And just to recall that Agrify is an impact investment facility with a mandate to provide medium to long-term financing to private sector enterprises active in the agri-food value chain, with a focus on family farmers, smallholders, micro, small, medium enterprises, women and youth. It also aims to raise, finance, and attract investment to benefit OACPS agriculture value chain actors through supporting the development of smart and green value chains. So my question to you, Leonard, is on investment mobilization. What strategies have proven effective in mobilizing local and foreign investments into low emission and climate resilient agriculture value chains? And then how does Agrify specifically support family farmers and smallholders in enhancing food security and increasing their incomes? You have 10 minutes, but we'll be more than delighted if you could actually do it in 7 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'll do my best. Let me share my screen. All right, dear ambassador, distinguished guests, and dear friends, it's a pleasure for me today to share with you the work of the whole EDFI management company and Agrify teams working on sustainable agriculture. First, before answering the question raised by Yvonne, let me share a few words about ETFI Management Company, the company that manages a series of blending facilities on behalf of the European Commission and the European development financing institutions here in Europe. The ETFI Management Company has been created in 2016, and the goal of the institution is to provide a series of instruments to both impact investors, but also to the DFIs. And those services include guarantees, co-financing schemes, but also market development solutions. And the blending facilities such as Agrify and Electrify are part of those blending facilities whose ultimate goal is to catalyze co-investors and bring them on board together with us in sustainable projects in emerging markets. A few words on Agrify. Agrify represents, as per today, around 150 million assets under management. This is spread across a series of facilities of country, regional, or global windows, as we call them. You can see here a few examples, such as the latest one that are being launched in Nigeria and Togo, and obviously the one in the ACP countries, which we have launched thanks to the great support of the organization of ACP states and also the European Commission, notably INTPA F3. On ACP specifically, since it started in 2021, we've invested more than 12.5 million euro across 5 different projects from Uganda to Burkina Faso via Kenya and as well more countries that are in the pipeline as we speak today. Now I'd like to dive into some concrete projects that we are having and that have been signed together with ACP. A first example is Gebana in Burkina Faso. Why does this project matters? Because it is one of the very few investments that are taking place in Bobo Dioulasso, Western Burkina Faso. Some of you have followed in the news that Burkina Faso can be labeled as a fragile state. When investment and foreign direct investments arrive in Burkina Faso, typically they go to Ouagadougou. Together with the sponsors, Gebana, a Swiss fair trade pioneer, and the Belgian DFI Bio, we decided to invest in this project in Bobo Dioulasso. And this is certainly a good example of what has been referred to by Yvonne as a good example of local value creation, because by investing in La Belle Usine, that is to say, a processing plants for cashew nuts and dried mango, we certainly support the local ecosystem, and more specifically, 1,200 local jobs and local quality jobs that certainly allows to tackle security issues in the region. So together with this project, for which the ACP regional window invested 3 million euro, we support not only 1,200 jobs, as I've mentioned, but also over the period of our investment, 6,000 smallholder farmers involved in the cashew and mango value chain. Another good example, and we discussed about climate change and climate risk, and Good Nature Agro is a social enterprise that certainly is committed to support not only local ecosystems, but also food security in Zambia. We've invested in July 2023 in Good Nature Agro together with co-investors coming from Europe, but also the US. And this project is meant to support 30,000 smallholder farmers over the tenure of our investments. And why does Good Nature Agro stand out? Well, because they work on soil quality, thanks to crop rotation, which they promote among the smallholder farmers they work with. The company buys seeds. This is a project associated with the seed value chain, and they buy seeds to local farmers while providing them with a series of services that can include loans in kind in the form of seeds that are made available for the smallholder farmers. And together with the good practices that they promote, the ultimate goal is to increase the yield for the smallholder farmers and therefore improve their resilience. No doubt that you've also followed in the news that Zambia is currently affected by a severe drought, and that project that Good Nature Agro really support the resilience of smallholder farmers and allow them to maneuver over this very difficult period. A third and last example of what we've been doing together with the OACPS and the European Commission in Kenya this time with Shamba Pride is the first investment that has been done in the form of a debt coming internationally with Shamba Pride, which is an agtech founded by local Kenyan entrepreneurs. We are not only proud to be the first debt investor, but that we've also worked with local investor Seedstar for this project to happen. And via this project, we expect to support 200,000 smallholder farmers that are provided with a digital platform that allows them to get access not only to market, but also to a series of very valuable inputs, such as animal feeds, organic fertilizer, or minerals, to name a few, and which obviously supports the productivity and the yield for the smallholder farmers. And as you can see, this is also expected to have a very concrete impact on the area under cultivation, expected to increase over time to reach 154,800 hectares per year. In answer to also Yvonne's question, some of the learnings that we've observed together with those different projects is that at Agrify, we invest in fragile contexts. That means that we need to discuss and engage with our clients on a higher equity buffer to absorb those shocks, which is really key for those projects to happen. But also when looking at the total project costs, we need to factor in our assumptions a higher level of contingencies, because we know that things can go wrong. And so this really requires a flexibility that can be made evident by the patient capital approach that we have, or also the flexible covenants that we sign with our clients. Another learnings is that we need at fee management company level to factor in our risk assessment approach the climate risk components. And this is again made evident by a series of shocks that have happened, such as droughts that has happened in East Africa over the last years, but also currently in Zambia. And this is something that we've integrated in our own risk assessment tool. And a third and last observation and learnings that we've seen with Agrify is that obviously we have a direct impact which we monitor in terms of number of smallholder farmers, how yield or area under cultivation increase over time. This is something that we look at together with our portfolio monitoring department at fee management company. But there's also a series of indirect impacts that is happening on the ground, and which is sometimes harder to quantify. And good example is, for instance, when by investing with subordinated instruments in company, we also support and increase the credit worthiness of our clients towards local financiers. And this is also something that is less tangible, but is which is very key for an investor like us at fee management company, because after all, our ultimate goal is to also mobilize co-investors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think you were on the spot. No, but thank you very much for sharing that information about the good work that you are doing. I was just saying to myself, in case in Brussels, we have a tendency of using jargon. So I'm sure maybe some of you were wondering what EDFI means. It's actually the European Development Finance Institution, just in case. I'm just putting it out there. But thank you very much for sharing information on the work that you're doing with regard to the smallholder farmers, how you're supporting them. I think you mentioned the issue of building capacity in terms of allowing your constituency to be able to even access digital platforms, which is very, very important. You've also shared some learnings. I took note of the patient capital approach, the risk assessment, the issue of climate risk as well, which are all critical issues. And I think one of the things that we have been saying is that the interventions that we have under the programs, they have to be meaningful interventions which actually touch, you know, like the realistic problems, the issues on the ground, you know. I think OACPS has moved from being a group that would normally just have this intervention, you know, in terms of broad aspects. But here, I think from what we are doing is we're trying to be really specific, you know, because we want to make an impact in terms of how we support our member states. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. We now move on to the Agribusiness Capital Fund, which is the ABC Fund. And in terms of background, just to mention that the ABC Fund, which is being implemented by IFAD, is a blended finance impact fund providing catalytic financing to profitable but underserved agribusiness value chains in OACPS countries, the famously known missing middle. It offers loans and equity investments to farm organizations, rural SMEs, and financial institutions. The ABC Fund targets smallholder farmers and SMEs with a bias towards women and youth. And I must say that all the private sector development program, we actually have a bias towards supporting women and youth. Now, with that background, let me turn to Didier. I have a question for you on financial access. Can you share examples of how the ABC Fund has successfully bridged the financing gap for small-scale farmers and rural SMEs, in particular, rural women and youth in ACP countries? You have 10 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Good afternoon, everyone, dear ambassadors. It's my pleasure to be representing the ABC Fund. I think my task is going to be easier after the presentation from AgriFi and also this brilliant introduction. So I'll quickly share my screen to show with you a few slides. Well, as you all know, agri-SMEs play a critical role in strengthening the food systems, from supplying input to farmers, collecting, transporting, and processing, to selling product to consumers. Unfortunately, as it has been said, agri-SMEs and smaller farmers in general remains underfunded due to the high risk profile perception for traditional lenders. It is estimated that there is a funding need of over 100 billion a year to fill the gap, the funding gap for agri-SMEs in Sub-Saharan Africa and also ACP countries. So this is really where these initiatives of setting up a blending finance vehicle, ABC Fund, was born, thanks to the leadership, the commitment from EU ACP, as well as other similar public institutions who share the same values of supporting small-scale farmers and agri-SMEs in rural area. So basically, the whole structure of the ABC funds lies down to the catalytic funding providing by UACP and the other investors that we had, which create that pool of capital which is patient enough and needed to address the specific challenges faced by agri-SMEs and cooperatives. The way the ABC fund works is that our interventions through mostly loans and quasi-equity is to provide capital to either financial intermediaries, farmer cooperatives, or agri-SMEs with the intent to target small order farmers. So for instance, when we consider an investment into a financial intermediary, one of the key questions is to understand, how these financial intermediaries is structured to reach the smaller farmers that we want to impact at the end of the day. Then for agri-SMEs...
Didier, sorry, could you maybe try and increase your screen? There is an issue. I think some of the participants can't. Yes.
Can you see my screen now?
We can, but it's small. Maybe you can just increase the size.
Let me try.
Is it in presentation mode? Yes. No. Well.
Is that better now?
That's better. Yes, that's better. Yeah. Oops, it's gone back.
It's gone back? Oh, sorry, let me just... Is that better?
This is better.
Perfect, sorry. So I was saying that our intervention is really geared towards impacting smaller farmers. So, even through the financial, the funding we provide to financial intermediaries, we try to really understand the impacts that these financial intermediaries can have on the small-scale farmers, which is mostly the implementation on the key areas where we see potential to have significant impact on smaller farmers. Same thing for agri-SMEs and farmers organizations. The intent is really to go towards value chains where there is a proven potential for impacting many small-scale farmers, especially women and youth. So that's why we made investment in cashew, in shea nut, in mangoes, etc., which I'm going to talk about in the following slide. So far, after 5 years, the fund has been able to mobilize 60 million euro from investors, and this capital has been put to use in 10 ACP countries, investing 58 million into financial intermediaries, SMEs, and cooperatives. We've supported 18 SMEs and cooperatives and 15 financial intermediaries. And in terms of the number of smaller farmers that have been impacted so far, it's over 200,000 who receive over 150 million euro in terms of payments, direct payment from SMEs and cooperatives that we've supported. And we believe that this impact is going to continue to grow given the upcoming transactions that we are considering. Some specific example of investment that we made. So typically our approach is really targeting value chain with significant impact potential. We've supported the pineapple value chain in Benin through a pineapple processing company. So essentially we provided the working capital funding for them to extend the network of outgrowers. So thanks to the funding provided by the ABC Fund, with also other partners, they've been able to reach more than 2,500 smallholder farmers who benefited from input supply and also specific funding during off-season. Then we also supported a company here in Côte d'Ivoire in the northern part of the country. So as you know, it is a fragile region in Côte d'Ivoire, where most of the rural populations are living in poverty, especially women. So this is where we targeted a shea butter processing company, which was at the time the only shea butter processing company in the country. The beauty of that company is that they had already started working with over 5,000 women, and they needed working capital funding to extend the production capacity, and also to have access to liquidity to be able to ensure timely payment to those cooperatives. And in addition to the capital that we provide, there's also technical assistance facility, also partly funded by EU OACP, through which we supported this company to adopt some specific food safety certification. In terms of one example of financial intermediary that the fund has supported is in Mali. As you know, the food insecurity in Mali is acute, and the idea in supporting this MFI was to fund small-scale farmers involved specifically into food crop production, such as rice, potato, onion, and maize. Although it is the second largest MFI in the country, it had not received any funding from any institutional financier. So ABC was the first institutional lender to support these MFIs, which has over 250,000 members, including farmers, cooperative, and processors. And I would say we pride to have provided this opportunity to this promising entity, which now has access to more funding from international investors. So that's in a nutshell the work that we've been doing. Of course, in terms of outlook, we continue to fundraise to increase the pool of capital available to support these small-scale farmers, and also expand the geographies that we are covering to go beyond the 10 countries that I just presented. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Didier, for sharing information with regard to investment stories, the work that you're doing in Africa. But I also just wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to also maybe emphasize, especially to the participants from the Pacific and the Caribbean, to say that the ABC Fund is meant for all ACPS. So it's Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific states. We have made a bit of progress with regard to Africa, but with regard to Caribbean and Pacific, I think we need assistance. And I think that is the beauty of having such a webinar, because I believe that after this, maybe we can also facilitate connections in terms of linking people so that we can see how we can gain momentum with regard to the Pacific and the Caribbean region. So thank you very much. And I also noted that ABC Fund actually is one of those instruments that has been very, very impactful in terms of working with farmer organization, in terms of working with smallholder farmers. You can see that most of the interventions actually even go through cooperatives. So that for us has been a very positive element, seeing that most of our countries, when you look at the structure in terms of agriculture, and as you mentioned, agriculture is regarded as being a risky sector, you see that you find all these smallholder farmers who find it very difficult to be able to access finance. But when they come together as a cooperative, that actually facilitates the process. And I've noted that this is one area that you actually have done a lot. So thank you very much for that. With that presentation, we've come to the part that I'm sure everybody was waiting for. So we are moving now into the question and answer session. Because of the interest of time, and I really want to leave a bit of time for the second panel, I'm going to open the floor for maybe 10 minutes to just get questions, and then we can still continue with question and answer and comments after the second panel. So I'd like to invite you to ask your questions. I'm sure you are all familiar with the hand icon at the bottom of your screen in the reaction box, where you can actually use that to raise your hand. And then you could also ask your question using the chat box. As you take the floor, please state your name, organization, and who your question is addressed to. So we'll take 3 questions, and then I'll pass them back to the panelists. And then if we have a bit of time, we can ask additional questions. So the floor is open for questions. And Alessia, please help me identify anybody that I might not see for the questions. Of course.
Indeed, there is a question in the chat box.
Yes.
And the question is how to apply for this investment for beneficiaries of the ACP project for East Ending coffee value chain.
Okay.
The question is from the OACP Business Friendly Project Coordinator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Since there's nobody else asking for the floor, would any of the speakers like to answer this question?
Yeah, I guess this is for ABC Fund. So I will be sharing the contacts of the fund manager of ABC Fund, which you can send the proposal. We are still in the process of setting up the management infrastructure for the other ACP countries to be able to very quickly be active in the other countries beyond Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Maybe from my side, I just want to find out. So here we have Fit for Market Capacity Building, Agri-Fi Finance, ABC Finance. What do we need to do to have those synergies going, you know? Jeremy is preparing the ecosystem, you know, for them to be able to access finance. You have these outfits that are supposed to be facilitating access to finance. How do we better integrate that? Because I do recall that when we were designing these programs in 2019, this was the idea, you know. If you look at the mandate, for instance, of ABC Fund, it even talks about cooperatives, farmers, and all. And we know that the other side is doing that. What do we need to do to improve the situation? Any ideas?
If I may.
Yeah, yes, please, Leonard.
No, I mean, what we note is that the early stage companies we invest in require a lot of things. They require technical assistance, they require debt, equity, working capital facilities in the short term. So maybe as one of element of answer is that what we do realize is that especially in fragile market, the collaboration is very important. We are also quite happy to have developed also links with impact investors that actually can also take over at the moment that our own investees at Agri-Fi go the right direction and become eligible for more commercial type of investors. So maybe one element of answer to your question, Yvonne, is to make sure that we all offer like different type of instruments based on the needs to really fulfill the numerous needs that we observe among the startups and the early stage companies we work with.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, you also wanted to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. Okay, it requires collaboration, communication, but at least here in this case between ourselves to start with. It won't be enough in absolute terms. I mean, when we see the scale of the needs, even if we look just at a program today, such as Fit for Market Plus, we talk about 600 companies, and including so MSMEs, cooperatives, etc. And this is just within the Fit for Market Plus program, and this is just within the fruit and veg value chain. So already between ourselves, we need clear communication, collaboration. When there are these opportunities that can arise, when investment criteria can potentially match some of the companies in need of this access to finance, but capable also of absorbing, and that comes to, of course, another question now when we talk about missing middle. Which missing middle are we really talking about? When we look at the average profile today of a lot of companies applying for support, we're talking about extremely small operators, which is a good thing from the perspective of Fit for Market, where a program such as Fit for Market Plus should be providing support in terms of technical assistance and capacity building, but which can prove even more challenging, especially when we're looking at fresh produce. I would argue that the situation could be slightly different when looking at processed products, but when looking at fresh produce, it makes it even more challenging when it comes to access to finance. So it's an ongoing process, and time has to be given. Honestly, the relationship to time to conduct these kind of transformative journeys, we're talking about years, and if not years, in some cases it's 10, 15 years down the road, and we need this time to be given. But between ourselves, clearly it's collaboration, but not only between ourselves, it's within the ecosystem, I believe, of these facilities on the financial side and other programs and other implementing kind of organizations when it comes to technical assistance and capacity building, because we're not the only ones out there providing this type of activity. And so it is true for any kind of program at the moment. We see this need to be able to collaborate, but and we always say we all want to build these partnerships. In effect, it's always challenging because we're all constrained by time. We all have our own requirements to comply with as well, and so it is a challenge on a day-to-day basis, but it has to be done. Otherwise, given the scale and the complexity of what we're trying to contribute to overcome, it will not be successful.
Okay. No, thank you very much. So, Patrick, you want to add?
Yes. So, yeah, thanks, Yvonne. I just want to say that your question is a very good one, because I've not heard of AgriFi, neither have I heard for ABC funds. And yeah, most of our small-scale farmers, they are always requesting for loan. And what happens is the company that comes in. But I think there are organizations like ABC Fund, AgriFi, that we could link with our suppliers. But then the information on how to get closer to this organization, that yes, it's something that if the organizations can work hand in hand, it will go a long way to help our work really to progress. So it's a very good one that you raise this up, and I hope it will be taken up. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Patrick. And I think one of the things we're going to do after this meeting is to circulate the PowerPoint presentations where you have the contact details for the different presenters. And I'm hoping that this is the beginning of good things to come. Two small questions, and then we move, because I know we have to give time to the other panel. There's a question from Botswana, basically saying on Fit for Market Plus, several Botswana companies applied for support. How do we follow up on the progress? Then Francois also asks on, he says, about risk management. Should these funds be able to take more risk in order to reach more SMEs? And if yes, how to cover the cost. Loan loss provision, write-off. Could we start with Jeremy, the one from Botswana quickly, and then we move to the colleagues from...
Well, indeed. Yeah, thanks for the question. We had a mission there, one of the first missions under Intra-ACP programs, because we had some initial requests and good collaboration with the embassy. And so I think the easiest there would be to set up a meeting, because I think the question comes from the embassy of Botswana. So I'm just going to drop my email here in the chat, and or please get in touch so we can set up a meeting and follow up on implementation. So I'll just write it down here.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comment from the colleagues, Agrify, ABC, on the question by Francois?
Yes, I can start. I think the short answer say yes. We do take more risk than traditional lenders. I think this is really why this vehicle has been set up, and the reason why we can take more risk, more risk, is because we have these catalytic funding available, this first loss tranche which is available. Of course, the objective is to support viable businesses, but given the risk of the sectors, you're going to have some loss provision, some write-off. But because you have patient investors, we're able, to understand the specific challenges of the agri sectors. We manage to thrive.
Thank you. Agrify, any comment?
No, it's a good question from Francois. We have more than 50% of our investments, looking at it in terms of volume, that is in SME. And we have quite a range of SME size, from smaller SMEs that have 1 million revenue up until SMEs that have, one of them have revenue that is around 100 million. So we are going out of the SME league. And so definitely at Agrify, what we try to do is to strike for a balance between the smaller SMEs, typically not below 1 million total revenue, but those SMEs that really are more intensive in terms of monitoring, in terms of due diligence, and we try to blend it together with the larger SMEs, let's call them this way. Now, how do we tackle the smaller SMEs than that? And we do this by providing financing to microfinance institutions, as we did with one of them to work with the maize value chain in northern Ghana. And we also work with impact funds that provide working cap facilities to smallholder farmers organizations or export-oriented SMEs.
Thank you very much. I think we can easily segue into the next panel. And before we do that, I just want to thank all the speakers, the panelists, and also the participants for the questions that were asked. I think this was a very interesting panel, and clearly after this, we still need to continue collaboration and exchanging information and see what we can actually achieve in terms of ensuring that we facilitate access to finance. So thank you very much, colleagues, for participating on this panel. So we now move on to the second panel. The second panel is basically going to discuss the topic, strengthening synergies between the intra-ACP programs and other agricultural endeavors across OACPS regions. On this panel, we have 3 presenters. So we have Mr. Larry Gardner, who is the CEO, Baby Loves CG Foods from Jamaica. And then we also have Mr. Daniel Njiwa, Inclusive Markets Trade and Finance Director from Agra. We have a lady, Mrs. Alisi Tuka. She is joining us from the Pacific community, and she is the Food Systems Program Lead. And just to say thank you to her for joining us, knowing that it must be an awkward hour in the Pacific right now. So let us start with Larry. Just to give a bit of background to his company. So Larry is a founder, chairman, and CEO of Baby Love CG Foods. As the innovator, sorry, I think Larry, we still need to mute you. Okay, all right. Yes, I was saying as the innovator and creator of all the products, he is an award-winning chef with more than 30 years of experience in this field with tried, tested, and proven products. Through the Alliances for Cocoa 2 project, Baby Loves CG Foods has formed commercial alliances to source coconuts from local farmers in Jamaica, added value at origin, and forged market linkages for his premium coconut ice cream, now boasting over 100 flavors, alongside the International Trade Center and the Cocoa Industry Board of Jamaica. Amazing work. So Larry, I have a question for you on innovation in agribusiness. Could you share your journey in developing and marketing premium coconut ice cream in Jamaica? And what role have local farmer alliances played in this success? Over to you.
Thank you, Ivana. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Ambassador and distinguished guests, would like to say what a pleasure it is to be a part of this forum. I think in order to talk about the journey, it may be easier for me to speak about where we are, because I think where we are actually gives a better picture of our journey. I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Let me know if you see it.
Yes, it's coming on.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, great. Where we are right now, we're trying to, based on our theme, reaching the world one scoop at a time. That's not kind of how we started, but where we are right now, in 2022, we got a phone call from the Coconut Industry Board here in Jamaica, and they were interested in the fact that we were making ice cream from coconut milk. Now, what we were doing was just, for me at the time, it was a retirement project. 4 years in America, decided I wanted to come to Jamaica and relax and enjoy the sunshine. It's beautiful down here for those of you who've never been here. And so I got here, started what was supposed to be a small ice cream company, and then realized that folks actually like the product. So here we are making ice cream. We're not really thinking of anything else but that. And we had what we call a farm to spoon program, where we buy all of our fruits from farmers, and through a method that we have, we use those fruits to make ice cream, no powders, no artificial flavors, and it was going great. The phone call from the Coconut Board, looking back now at 2024, is probably one of the biggest things that ever happened to us as a company. It was at the tail end of ITC's program for coconut resilience in the Caribbean. And since we were using coconut, they said, well, would you like to come be a part of the program? For me at the time, coconut was just a byproduct. We would get the coconut, process the coconut, make ice cream, and throw everything away. And in November of 2022, I was invited to go to Cocotec in Malaysia. And that has been an eye-opening experience for us ever since. And what we've done since then, if you look at some things on the screen, all of the things that we have here, from our linkages, from Alliances for Action, for our capacity building, the scaling up our production, the food safety testing, all of that came from this alliance through ITC, through the Scientific Research Center here in Jamaica, and through the Coconut Board, and through the EU. We've got funding from the EU for our GMP program. None of this would have been possible for us as a company. What we're looking at is just, like I said, just making ice cream, making sure we get a few customers in to make a living. But then we realized from a global perspective, from a climate change perspective, that we could add more value to the industry. Yeah, we had a few farmers that we're doing business with, but we could do more as a company. But none of this would have been available. None of this information would have been available to us if we never had the opportunity to be a part of these programs. These programs that come, they bring information, they bring education, they bring funding. I've listened to some of the things that were talked about before, and yes, we do need more funding. Never heard about ABC funding. Haven't heard about Agrify. So here again, we get into these forums where you find that there are valuable information. The funny thing about information, though, is information is just information on paper. It's how is that information implemented? How do you get that information to work for you? How do you get it into various factors? And this is what's happened with us through ITC, through the Development Bank, through commercial partners, where we're able to participate in B2B meetings. Earlier this year, I was invited to speak in Spain. And at that event, we realized there are so many more individuals and companies and institutions that are doing things around the globe that we are not seeing. And so I'm really appreciative of OACP to be a part of a project like this. But what has it done for our journey? We've become a much bigger company. We've become a much more inclusive company. We just received the equipment from India, a new partner that we met at the Cocotech conference in Malaysia. And so we've now moved into coconut production. So we're not just making ice cream anymore from coconut milk. We're now processing coconut. We're taking the coconut, we're deshelling the coconut, we're taking the shell, and we're making activated charcoal from it. We're taking the tester, we're making virgin coconut oil. We're taking the coconut, the desiccated coconut, and we're now providing cow feed. And we have companies now that's buying it for us for products. This kind of circular economy has come through education. And so what I'm hoping, and I'm listening to everyone speaking and I'm making notes, that when we come into these forums and we share ideas, that it's more so not to talk about, it's easy to talk about what we've accomplished, what we're doing, but if we don't know how it's accomplished and how we're doing it, then the journey is not as fruitful. And so for us, we started doing 30 gallons of milk per day. We moved to 60 gallons of milk per day. This year, through the alliances, through our growth, we're now moving to 2,400 liters of gallons of milk per day, which is a 10-time growth for us. Difficult. So ABC, I hope you see me. Hi. Agrify, hi. Because now as we grow, as we implement what we're doing, we need that kind of help. You can look at our increased sales. That has happened tremendously. Our Farm to Spoon program has changed since we've been a part of ITC and the Coconut Board, where we now have a green initiative. We're looking to be more responsible in terms of what we do. So like I said, when we started our journey, we would buy coconut, break that coconut open, throw the shell away, grate that coconut, take the milk and throw everything away because it had no intrinsic value to us as a company. Now we're looking at lowering our carbon footprint. We're looking at renewable energy. We're looking at moving to zero waste. So when we get the coconut, when we break that coconut open, like I said, we take the shell and we create charcoal. That's income and work for more people. We take the tester, we take the desiccated coconut, and we've now created other industries. Like I said, we talk about circular economy, where nothing gets wasted. And this came through education, through forums like this. And so we're happy to be a part of this journey. Last year, we became the recipient of a couple of awards. We were third for Best New Product here in Jamaica. We took first prize for Buy Jamaica because they said what we have as a company represents the Jamaican spirit. We are the largest manufacturer of plant-based ice cream in Jamaica and in the region. It said over 100. We just did a presentation in Georgia last week. And usually what we do with every state that we go to when we're invited to an event is we try to create an ice cream from that region so they know how flexible we are and how good our product is. And so Georgia is known for peach. It's the peach state, and in the U.S. And we made a Georgia peach ice cream, which became our ice cream number 107. So we have a lot more to go. So it has been a great journey. If you look at our final screen here, you're looking at a bunch of young people, and we have found here in our community, for the most part, young people have nowhere to go. Jobs are not available. They in terms of training, and we've had the opportunity to hire 16 employees, and these are full-time employees that are under the age of 22. They're ranging from 18 to 22. Very malleable, willing to learn. And so what we're doing is helping them create a career while creating what we consider to be the best ice cream in the world. And so that's been our journey. It's been an eventful journey. Something that should have been a retirement project has now become an industry, but it wouldn't have happened for us if it had not been for events such as this. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. Let me mute you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying amazing. These are the stories that we need, to show that it can actually be done, You said something very important. There is information out there, but it's how you use that information, how you implement that information. And I'm glad that we have this webinar, which has also allowed you to get information about AgriFi and ABC Fund. And I'm hoping that one of the takeaways from our session will be to have those connections made. And then maybe after 6 months or so, we can again meet and say, hey, we had this discussion, where are we? So I'm very, very delighted that you actually agreed to be part of this discussion and to share your story, which is also inspiring to a lot, I'm sure, on the line. So thank you very much. Let me quickly turn to, and I see that I'm really running out, I'm doing badly on time. I will move to Agra and quickly just introduce him, give some background information. So Daniel is the Director of Inclusive Markets, Trade and Finance at Agra. He has 20 years experience in agriculture development with a particular focus in agriculture food trade, aimed at building inclusive and resilience food supply chains for income growth and food security in sub-Saharan Africa. Daniel is a double holder of Masters of Science degree in International Business Administration and Agriculture Economics obtained from the University of London, School of Oriental and African Studies, and University of Malawi. So Daniel, your question is on inclusive markets. And I'm hoping that since you work for Agra, maybe we can also talk about how we can enhance regional integration between what we're doing in Africa and the Caribbean, and try and see how we can also link up with Larry here. I'm throwing ideas out, but anyway, so how does Agra work to build inclusive and resilient food supply chains? And what are some notable successes in this area? You have 10 minutes, over to you.
Thanks, Yvonne. I hope you can hear me. Thanks for
yes, we can. Yes, we
can. Great. No, it's been very refreshing listening to all of the speakers, and Larry in particular, on the good work that's happening out there. You're able to see my slide, right?
Yes, we can.
Great. I'll just put it in slideshow. So I'm just going to try and make it, maybe elevate the pitch a bit, and because I think we've heard a lot of interesting stories from the rest of the colleagues. I don't know if it's in slide mode. It is, yeah. Okay. Great. And thanks, Yvonne, for the partnership. Agra participates, in the ABC Fund and other, initiatives that of course my colleague Hedwig is active in. My presentation today will just, aim to perhaps provoke a conversation while sharing some of the experiences that Agra transformation. And to your question about, connecting Africa and the Caribbean, I'm just coming fresh from the Afri-Exim Bank annual meetings, which were held in the Bahamas. And we had a lot of, Caribbean participants, market actors, and the bank is really keen to open shop. I think they've already set up shop in the Caribbean to support small businesses and of course, more interaction and integration with, the motherland, as they called it, continuously in that event. So that's really interesting. But let me start by just painting a small picture of where we are today as a continent. As AGRA, I hope you all know what we do. We are involved in agriculture transformation since the times of Kofi Annan, who helped set up AGRA. We are currently present in 12 African countries in East and Western Africa, but also Southern Africa. We hope to expand to 25 countries, mainly looking into the staple foods sector. And we are constantly, concerned about, food security. We are concerned about nutrition security. We're concerned about the environment. We are concerned more recently about, youth employment, but also the participation of women in agriculture value chains. But where are we today? Since I can remember, we are always in hundreds of millions of Africans suffering from food insecurity, and that's not nice. This is further impacted by so many things that happen in our environment, including climate stresses and shocks, economic downturns and insecurity, and many other things. But also even at a much lower level in terms of access to productivity inputs and markets, issues to do with policy and all that. We are, at this, as I speak to you today, currently importing over $100 billion of food into Africa from global markets. Not necessarily a bad thing importing, but these are often food that we are able to produce in Africa. The likes of maize, likes of rice. We are also able to produce wheat. Countries like Ethiopia have just demonstrated to us that they could actually turn around, their wheat import bills within a season. Countries like Zimbabwe are doing, similar things. Egypt and others. Soybeans. These four commodities constitute, over 30% of our total, food import bill in Africa. But what are they? Why are we in this situation? Productivity is, still a problem. We are, if we look at, cereals still under 2 tons, and yet we have, over 60% of uncultivated arable land in the continent. Globally, averages, it's above 5 metric tons. Trade, as I indicated, annually over 100 billion. Will probably surpass 120 in a few years if nothing changes. Infrastructure. We need to invest in infrastructure because this is also another thing that's affecting movement of food across the continent. Paved roads are still, hard to come by. Water management is a big problem, particularly in, regions where you have to produce either rice or, in order to mitigate against, climate stresses like drought and what have you. You really need good use of water, irrigation systems and all that. Research and development, very little investment going in there, averaging around 2% of government spend on agriculture is on research is very very disappointing, and yet we have a very healthy youth population, which others call a youth dividend. I like to say it's not a youth dividend if it's not empowered, if it's not connected to the economic activities that we are involved in. So this is just painting a picture, and how does AGRA want to play a role in this space? Yes, we've taken on our shoulders a heavy responsibility, which means we like to look at the sector from right end to end, from production to the markets to policy and everything in between, because we believe this is a real and maybe right way to address issues of inclusivity, to address issues of resilience. Because as you said, put it, the ability of people, households, or systems to really mitigate and adapt or recover from shocks is really the definition of resilience. In this case, we like to invest in spaces that allow households, in this case, either farmers or SMEs, are able to, make ends meet. They're able to, bounce back and be able to still access inputs or access a market after a shock. But we also want to, be in the space of structuring markets, where, we want to ensure that these markets are available, they're stable, but also more predictable based on, the right policies that are being implemented, based on, information that's available, based on, relationships that can be, created. Beyond that, of course, we look at, the participation of women as well as youth. We know that, profitability by women businesses is always, low. Others estimated at between 20 to 30% lower than, businesses that men are involved in. And yet women are actually, at front of everything in agriculture production, particularly in the staple food sector that we are involved in. We've also just seen, in trade that women, particularly young women and youth, they're actually, comprising the biggest majority in informal trade. And why are they in informal trade? Why are they not in the formal sector? It's because of all of these, challenges that face them, including access to finance. We're talking about here issues of, unfair treatment, sexual harassment, and all of these things, policies that are not inclusive, that force them to do things in a less profitable manner. So what I'm displaying here is just the ecosystem way AGRA, operates. Yes, we've spent more time, on the productivity side in the inception of our organization, where we've been looking at seeds, production of or development of varieties, good varieties. But now we're increasingly looking at the market and distribution side of seeds, but also fertilizers. At the center, we have our farmers, but also we're looking at market linkages and the post-harvest to value addition activities. We're looking at policies and access to finance, but beyond a domestic market, we also look at trade policy and trade facilitation issues. There are a number of models that we've been testing, with mixed results, but mostly successful. Is what we're calling a consortium model, where we really like to understand what is the binding constraints that farmers face in a particular region along a particular corridor or value chain, and then bring in the right players, including and more importantly, by focusing on a demand pool approach. So who's the off-taker, who's the business on top of that sector, who's going to be buying, who's going to be providing a market, who's going to be exercising some value chain governance. Here are the rules of the game, and here are the standards that we need at the market to come into that ecosystem, and then we connect backwards as to who else is involved in that chain, who's supplying the inputs, who's supplying the technology and all that, and bring them in a consortia kind of model. And we've seen quite a lot of successes in those areas. More recently, we're talking now, more regional kind of value chain development programs, which I'll speak to in a bit. But for the first 14, 15 years and ending perhaps last year in our AGRA 2.0, we've managed really to support and achieve a lot in the 11 countries where we're involved. Over 11 million farmers have been reached by our interventions. We've managed to leverage additional value or investments from private sector through partnerships of over $141 million. Through government's investments and other, flagship programs in excess of $1 billion, loans, including partly, our participation in the ABC Fund, $359 million. So a lot really has been achieved in that space just to support the farmer ecosystem and SMEs. But the main issue here is, why are we involved in these different spaces? It's because we really want to be catalytic. We know that the challenge is much bigger than AGRA. We know the challenge is much bigger than maybe all of us in this room. But how do we each play a role that allows others to come in and see potential, or at least an opportunity to invest and at least grow together? So that's why we come into policy space, to help governments make reforms of policies that really help open up markets. That's why we work through partnerships and alliances to bring together, like-minded, sometimes even superior skill sets, to come into the market and work with us. And we look forward to work with many of you here. And that's why we're also, very selective of the sectors that we are involved in. Currently, staple foods, but we are also just recently, opening up into the horticulture space, particularly in East Africa, countries like Rwanda, who are, big in chilies, avocados and potatoes in Kenya, avocados in Tanzania, but even extending into Southern Africa. We see potential there because there's more participation of women and youth in those spaces. But there are challenges that we need to be addressing. I will end with a provocative slide here. So even after, perhaps close to 2 decades of our work, and many of you, perhaps multiple decades of investing in the African continent, like I indicated, the picture still looks a bit gloomy. The picture, we've been tracking food security, for example, in the countries where we operate, and you can see the red, the yellows, and the orange. Those just tell you that we still have challenges with food security in those spaces, and yet there's a lot of investment, going in those spaces. So what's the problem? What is it that we're not doing right? Yeah, and our belief is that if we come together, if we coordinate better, if we partner better, and partnering not just between public and development agencies, but also private sector, the financing guys, the investment guys, can we create those relationships and open up those spaces so that we address these challenges? In the map in the middle, we have circled West Africa and somewhere in East and Southern Africa. What we're saying is the AGRA is now looking at an Africa food security kind of initiative, which takes a food baskets or food corridors approach. So we've kind of mapped, where is the concentration of the population, which is, our market? Where is the concentration of infrastructure, be it limited in whatever, sense, but where is it? And where do we have the best water resources, agroecologies, to do a lot? And you find that it is in the same spaces where we are also seeing challenges in food security. And we like really to bring in, a lot of relationships and partnerships in these spaces. SEHA initiative is a COMESA horticulture accelerator initiative that's looking at, opening up South and Eastern Africa markets for horticulture. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a regional program that we're supporting. ERO in the West Africa is ECOWAS Rice Observatory Initiative, which is focusing on rice, just bringing self-sufficiency in the West Africa region for rice. But there's a lot that are questions that need to be answered in those spaces, including water, including inputs, processing, logistics, policy, and all that. All of these need to be addressed by us in the room. So really, I'll end by, asking provocative questions here. Is it not ironic that, high potential agroecologies are also home to incidents of food security? Is it just a population or demand play, rate of urbanization, or productivity issue? Or it's more than that? And then how are we looking at, securing resilience within Africa, increasingly developing shorter supply chains and less reliance on global maybe supply chains, which we've seen during COVID that they can fail. We've seen when wars are happening in Europe between Ukraine and Russia that sometimes people will go hungry in Africa because two countries are fighting. The fewer countries that are producing maize globally, which is a big food crop in Africa. If anything happens in those economies, we are left vulnerable here. So let's rethink how we want to participate. Let's rethink how our governments will invest in these spaces so that we improve the resilience and inclusivity of our food systems in Africa. Sorry, I took a little bit of time, but thank you so much for giving us space, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It just shows the passion. And when you spoke about those questions, something was running in my mind. I'm saying, round table, we have to have this collaboration, this discussion. We have Larry, we have the different institutions who are providing access to finance. Definitely, we need to have the conversation. But I won't go into detail because I know that we are really behind time. And I want to quickly invite Alessi, just introduce her so that she can then make her intervention. But thank you very much for your presentation. So Alessi is the Food Systems Program Lead at the Pacific Community. She's based in Suva, Fiji. She is responsible for providing leadership and coordination of the Food Systems Integrated Program. Alessi has worked in regional development for over 20 years, covering infrastructure development, private sector, and strategic planning. Her immediate past roles prior to the SPC, which is the Secretariat for Pacific Community, was working in regional private sector, serving as team leader, private sector at the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, PIFS, and also as CEO of the Pacific Islands Private Sector Organization, PIPSO. Alessi, yeah, I'm reading my notes now. Yes, she's online. Welcome. We have a question for you, which is basically what strategies have proven most effective in fostering meaningful public-private partnerships to drive agriculture development in Pacific Island nations? How can these strategies be adapted or scaled to benefit other ACP countries? Over to you.
Thank you, and good evening from Suva, Fiji. It's Your Excellency, my fellow panelists, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to join your conversation this evening and hopefully add to the reflections this evening. I'll just quickly share my slide. I only have 3, if I can find it. Just 3 slides. So thank you for the question. I guess I work for a regional scientific organization. So my response and my reflections will be on that basis. I'm not a private sector organized. I mean, I don't work for a private sector organization as such. So SPC is a regional scientific organization. We were started in 1947. So we're 70 plus years old, so fairly old if you're looking at regional organizational structures. We have a membership of 22 Pacific Island countries and territories, so a fairly big membership. And we work in over 27 sectors. So agriculture and fisheries obviously being the most obvious ones since I'm on this panel. We also work in public health, water and sanitation, energy, human rights, gender statistics, and that's just a small part of the 27 plus sectors that we work in. We also house what we call regional public goods, which entities and collectives that are intended to consolidate regional capabilities to benefit the region. So we have so for example, we have our Gene Bank, which is the Center for Pacific Crops and Trees. We also have the Pacific Data Hub, and we have our fisheries science, particularly in oceanic fisheries. Our smallness and remoteness are, I guess, the challenges, especially to accessing markets and improving trade. And it boils down to the isolation, the long distances from larger markets, the costs associated to these, particularly transportation, marketing, and distribution, which it's quite well known, it's very high. And of course, compounding this is the convergence of crisis, the existential crisis, if you will, of climate change, which we're at the forefront of. Also non-communicable diseases and the health crisis. It's quite stark and scary that over 60% of people in the region are dying from non-communicable diseases. There's biodiversity loss, and of course our vulnerability to economic shocks, COVID-19 being the perfect case in point. And this has really framed us as a region to come together even more so. So the 2050 strategy, which is pictured there on the screen, is a document, a policy document that our leaders endorsed about 3 years ago and charts our commitments based on our shared stewardship of the Pacific Ocean and our land and terrestrial resources, of which agriculture and forestry are center. And this presents massive opportunities for us, particularly for our economies and for food systems, of which agriculture, forestry, and fisheries are center. But also it places greater ownership and accountability at the heart of food systems conversations and interventions. As a scientific organization, we work with line ministries, ministries of agriculture, ministries of fisheries, and the like, and have traditionally worked to support sectors directly. And this, no doubt, continues, but we also recognize, and this is through our current organizational strategic plan, the importance of now taking a more systematic approach and promoting integrated programming. So whilst we have a fisheries division, a land resources division, and so on, we also have what is called flagships. So food systems is one flagship in the organization. And the idea is to take a systems approach to the challenges that's confronting the region and seeing how, as a sector, we can work across the organization and using the capabilities that's available to us. So in agriculture, we're working with our coastal fisheries team, with our water and sanitation, energy, transportation, for example. Why are we doing this? I guess fundamentally for three reasons. One is, food is at the heart of Pacific cultures, identities, and economies. And I'm sure, no doubt, for everyone also in this room today. So we look to the coastal food systems, indigenous food systems, and leveraging off the traditional knowledge and practices, and how can we use innovation and market-based solutions to address some of these food system deficiencies. Secondly is the Blue Pacific continent, that is the Pacific Ocean, and it's at the heart of both our regional and global food system. And of course, mentioned earlier, this presents massive opportunities for our economies, and also to reflect on that relationship between the ocean and land and vice versa. And that's really fundamental to us here in the Pacific to recognize that. And lastly, that SPC brings a lot of capabilities to the table. Regional goods are access to leadership and decision makers, but also networks like those present today, the OACPS, SIDS, the Commonwealth. So tapping into those networks and resources to be able to collaborate and work together for better results, if you will. So as a region, we have a suite of policies, and that's just a handful that I've put up on the screen. A suite of policies and strategies endorse that regional level. And then, of course, this is translated to local and national context. And some of the examples are listed on the slide there that really points to agricultural development in the region. And for us in SPC, in terms of supporting agricultural development, this lies particularly with our Pacific Regional Agriculture and Forestry Strategy, which was only just endorsed in May this year by our Pacific Heads of Agriculture. So next is to now develop a divisional business plan to support the rollout of this strategy. We also have specific projects that are taking place and being rolled out in the organization. And one I'll mention is the EU-funded one, European Union-funded project, which is Safe Pacific. And that's really looking at the Pacific ACPs to address the barriers in accessing export markets, enhancing value-added products, and lots of examples that have been cited by speakers earlier on today. And this is important for us, particularly as small island countries, because we are constrained to meet international trade requirements and standards, which of course limits access to markets. But there's also other work that support this, which includes biosecurity, animal health and production. And a recent piece of work, which we've started also in the organization, is a bigger focus on One Health. So this is important to obviously prevent environmental related human and animal health threats, ensure food safety, and of course a more medical health interface around antimicrobial resistance, for example. Every 2 years, the Pacific hosts the Pacific Week of Agriculture. So the next one is next year in Tonga. And this builds on the interactions we've had with the Caribbean, since 2014, with support from what was then the CTA, which now doesn't exist anymore, but we'd had really strong partnerships with them over the years. The SIDS interactions is important for agriculture and private sector development, and especially given the recent SIDS meeting and the outcomes from that, which continues to highlight food security and the importance to increase sustainable agriculture and fisheries. And of course, the opportunities for SME development and market-based solutions is aplenty, but of course, as I think everyone has pointed out throughout this two panels, is fundamentally access to finance is still one of the biggest challenges that we still have to overcome. My last slide is really where SPC provides support in terms of PPPs. So in the Pacific, the PPPs, it has largely been in infrastructure development. So, large utilities, transportation, infrastructure such as wharves and ports, and of course in the health sector. And PPPs in the agri-food space has really been quite limited. And where there is such arrangements in place, it's really with direct businesses or entities. And so we all know that, you know, the strategic and innovation partnerships like PPPs can really accelerate growth, and particularly in primary industries such as agriculture and fisheries, but also in manufacturing. I think for us, it's also quite important to work on this a bit more, because we recognize that according to our statistics division, that, you know, our population is expected to double by 2050. So of course, putting further strains on our health system, but also on our agri-food system. So we see, you know, the public-private partnerships particularly being the perfect vehicle to really address a lot of these strains and these pain points. And so while agri-food PPPs has been largely promoted and advocated quite well, it's the actual implementation is still quite a struggle and hinge. And a lot of it, I think, sits around, obviously financing is one, but also the whole governance aspect of it. But we know that combining, you know, the efficiencies of the private sector and the regulatory role of the public sector is a great way to bring this together. But of course, it's still a work in progress, even for us here in this region. So for SPC's efforts to support members in addressing PPPs, I'll just quickly share some of the work that we're doing. And that's, I guess, our core work is a science entity. So really providing technical advisory services and ensuring that this aligns to national and regional policies, but also that it complements global commitments that we've signed up to. And of course, this includes, for example, business clustering as a modality for PPP, the role of flagships within the organization, as well as regional public goods and integration or programming and co-designing. And this is really, whilst this is more intergovernmental, this is an opportunity to bring in private sector and civil society, particularly, as well as academia. We have a human rights division, so people-centered approaches is non-negotiable in a lot of the work that we do. So this is really fundamental, but also noting that, you know, Pacific peoples are the beneficiaries of a lot of the initiatives, but also we're looking to them as partners in development, particularly businesses, entrepreneurs, and the workforce and policymakers. Investment and resource mobilization is not just about money and the funds, but it's also about the technical support, new ways of doing things, partnerships, and we're really looking to new opportunities. So these investments could potentially fund existing work, which we're already doing, and scaling it up, but we're looking more to it as ways to mobilize early stage pilots. And this is really crucial for private sector development, and particularly for agriculture and fisheries. Commercial banks won't really openly lend to these because they see them as high risks, as we've heard from many speakers also. So really looking to those impact investors, but also we're actually venturing into approaching philanthropic entities. And we've got a big project that's underway at the moment called Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity, of which coastal food systems is a key focus area. And that's something we're working with the Bezos Earth Fund at the moment. And so that's really I guess, a big potential PPP, which is working with governments and private sector. So we're having a big workshop later this month to refine that business case. And last is really, as a science agency, the science and data that underpins a lot of the work that we hope makes or provides for informed decision-making when you're entering into PPP. So I'm just putting there 2 links for 2 of our big data hubs that we use. So we've got the Pacific Food Database. It's an interactive website, which SPC's Statistics Division works with the University of Wollongong. So you can interact, you can pick your country in the Pacific, and you can go back and look at all the export and import data going way back to even 1995, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so you can see the trends and the movements of commodities. And so we presented this 2 years ago to the last Pacific Week of Agriculture, and it was in fact the Pacific private sector who were applauding the initiative because they saw it as a great planning and investment tool for businesses. And the Pacific Data Hub pretty much covers all sorts of statistics and information that can be extracted from member countries. So yeah, it's really just an overview of SPC and sort of the support services that we provide to the countries which could mobilize the modalities of PPPs. And that's it from me. Thank you. And I'll just put my contact up on the screen should anyone want to reach out later on.
Alice, thank you very much. For those that may not know, it is 3 a.m. in Fiji. And she's been with us from the time we started. That is how committed she is. It just shows your commitment to the OACPS. So we're really, really grateful for that. And we hope that from this session, we will actually be able to even develop new partnerships. And here, I was just noting down what you presented and the discussion that we had on ABC Fund, how we don't have projects from the Pacific. So see how we can collaborate on that. We'll be sharing with the participants another piece of work that we are doing with GIZ, where we have just launched a call for proposals for value chains, where GIZ will be giving out grants, I think a maximum of 100,000 euros, but we'll share this information. They're looking at 4 value chains, cocoa, maize, livestock, and I forget the other one, but we'll share this information. Sorry?
Cashew.
And cashew. So we're going to share this information with you. So with that, we are really, really behind time. We were supposed to have stopped at 5. So maybe we can just have one question, and then of course we can continue the discussions. I'm sure people have everybody's contact details, so we can continue the conversation after the session. So the floor is open for one question, any takers? I see in the chat, nope. Okay, maybe we can use this 1 minute to invite the speakers. If you have any final word or, oh, I see, what is this? Okay, all right. Any final word with regard to the discussion? I was throwing out the idea of a round table to see how maybe after the summer break or next year we can continue this conversation that we've had. Any ideas, anything that anybody would want to put out there that we can take as a main takeaway, apart from the other takeaways that we'll have from this session? Yes, Larry.
Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone for allowing me this opportunity. Really great information that was shared here. I was at the SIDS in Antigua earlier this year, and something that came up a lot that happens to small companies like ours, and something that it was talked about earlier, is we're always in a space where there's a lot of information. And I said it earlier, is having access to that information. We're in that space where there's a lot of funds available. And, as we saw from AgriFi and ABC funding, there's a lot of work going on in a lot of regions. For us here in Jamaica, for example, this is OACP, and we see a lot of the A. It'll be great to see a lot of the C represented. You see where, the programs are available, and a lot of folks in the African community benefit from it, but sometimes that knowledge and that information doesn't reach this far. And so really would like to be able to share in that space and get that information. But I'm happy to be a part of this event. It was absolutely enlightening.
Larry, your message is loud and clear. We'll definitely work on that. So any other, okay, just see people are posting information. Yes, there's information about Business ACP. Can you just clarify? Is this the the PowerPoint presentation, or this is the MGS? Yes, Valerie.
Hello. Hi, everyone. No, we were just promoting. Hi, Alicia. Good to see you. We were just promoting the page where we will, the page to Business ACP website, where also panelists and participants can find more details about the presentations. They will be able to watch the replay, sorry. And also we invite you all to continue the conversation with us on our LinkedIn page, Business ACP web page. So this is why we've put all these links.
Can you also share the information about GIZ?
MGS?
I really want people to get information about those grants.
I'll do that now. Okay.
Yeah, since the deadline is 18th of August, and we have everybody here. So we have our matching orders. Okay. So I guess we can segue into the closing remarks. I don't have, my boss is not here, so I'm basically just going to throw a few points from the discussions as main takeaways. I think the issue of collaboration, partnership, alliances, that has come up very clearly. That is something that we're taking. I think it was noted that this is essential for scaling up successful interventions, replicating best practices across our diverse landscapes. Agriculture continues to hold immense potential for the sustainable development of OACPS countries. Intra-ACP private sector development programs have catalyzed growth, enhanced resilience, and empowered communities across OACPS regions. I think Jeremy also indicated here that we've seen an increase in the market share of OACPS products. Policy frameworks continue playing a pivotal role in shaping agricultural landscape. Sustainable agriculture development requires more than just financial investment. It necessitates robust governance structures, inclusive policies, and forward-thinking strategies. We spoke about the importance of including women and youth in the different initiatives, which basically comprise a significant portion of our agricultural workforce. Lastly, I think just to reemphasize that as OACPS, we remain committed. The Secretariat remains committed to supporting our member states in navigating the challenges that were raised during our discussion and also seizing the opportunities that lie ahead. We commit to work with all the partners to facilitate connections and to see how we can bring or contribute to sustainable development of our member states. Before I end, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the participants for your active participation, the speakers for your time, for the presentations, and your contribution and engagement, for the interpreters for enabling us to understand each other. Imagine if we had no interpretation, this would be something else. Business ACP team for the excellent organization of this webinar. A special thank you to Alessia, who has been a star in making this event happen. I believe the PowerPoint presentations have already been circulated. Together, we believe that we can harness the transformative power of agriculture to build resilient economies, ensure food security, and improve the lives of millions across the OACPS regions. With that, thank you very much. We will be sending information to you on the next session. I don't know, Alessia, if you've got any information, dates, or topic for the next session on the webinar.
Hi, hello. Good evening, everyone. Yes, next session is foreseen for October, end of October 2024, and will be the topic will be on green economy. So very interesting and hot topic, I think, for private sector development. So we're looking forward to see you for the next session. Thank you very much again.
All right. No, thank you very much. And a special thank you to Ambassador Manuri. I see he's still with us. Thank you also to the other ambassadors that may be present and to other colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us. Until the next time. Have a lovely evening. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Kira.